All right, and let's get started. Hello, everyone. So I am just so delighted to see such a great turnout for this event. And so I'm here to answer whatever questions you may have about the book or about cybersecurity careers or about any topics adjacent to any of that. I do have the link for the Kickstarter in my custom Zoom background there because I'm trying to learn how to market myself a little better. And it seems to be working because the most recent update on the Kickstarter is we are at, in Canadian dollars, by the way, your currency might be different, but in Canadian dollars, we're at $2,606 over my $2,000 base fundraising goal. So we've got about 2 more weeks to go that the Kickstarter campaign is still running. So I am just like really delighted by the support that the book has been receiving. And I want to thank anyone here who has been a backer for your generosity. And I've also received help from Allison Laderman, the CEO. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Laderman, the CEO of Accolade.
You get it right.
And so now, thanks to her help, she gave me inside access to one of the courses. I can give you really great information about Accolade certifications in a chapter, and they're really useful. Two of them focuses on the NIST cybersecurity framework and how to apply that to incident response and risk management and whatnot. There is a cyber risks and cyber defense related certification that's related to Gen AI and the new the AI framework that the NIST recently came out with. So they're offering some certs that really focus on areas that aren't really well covered outside in the cybersecurity certification market. So I'm really pleased to be able to share that with you. So yeah, so anyway, this is the event. I'm awkward on camera, so I'm gonna feel free to ask questions either in the chat or on microphone. It doesn't matter. And in lieu of questions, I will just continue bantering about the book. So if you're really curious, there are 19 chapters planned for the book. And as of yesterday, I have written drafts for 8 of those chapters. And so yesterday, I finished writing and researching a chapter on AWS certs because some of the certs in my book are vendor neutral, but some of them are vendor specific. So I try to cover as many of the relevant ones as I can. And I just wrote a whole chapter on, oh, wait, we have a new attendee here. All right. So for anyone new here, I just want to warn you that this meeting is being recorded. If you do not want to appear in the video, that is fine. Just leave your camera turned off and leave your microphone turned off, and you may ask questions in the chat. And I will answer questions as soon as I receive them. And until I receive questions, I will just continue talking randomly about the book. So, yeah. So, oh, here we go. We've got a question. So, does the fact that you're self publishing make the writing process different? That is an absolutely excellent question. So, for anyone here who doesn't know, who hasn't read the full story of my Kickstarter or hasn't been following my career, my first proper book was something that I co-wrote with a man named Philip Wiley, and it was titled The Pentester Blueprint. And it was published by Wiley Tech, no relation to Philip Wiley. And it was a really great experience for me, and it got my foot in the door because basically okay, I'm rambling. I have a tendency to ramble, so I'll try to be a little more concise here. Is So I guess in basically the commercial publishers I have written books for have been Wiley Tech, O'Reilly Media, and Pact Publishing so far. And I've had great experiences, to be honest with you, especially when working with O'Reilly. In fact, to this day, I still have a working relationship with O'Reilly, and I have been working on things behind the scenes with them. Is it different writing a book that's being self-published? Definitely, because I am completely on my own. Sometimes people who self-publish hire an editor to work with them and pay the editor out of their own pocket. But I am not paying an editor. I am being my own editor, which, I think I'm fairly good at editing my own work. My spelling, grammar, punctuation is pretty good, and I can write concisely and write good prose, I think. But I'm used to working with commercial publishers, and I'm used to working with, there'd be a content development editor, and there'd be copy editors. So the content development editor is kind of creatively guiding you, trying to get your ideas out and organizing your ideas, which is arguably something that I would benefit from because I have ADHD. And I've had some really great development editors I've worked with over the years. Like, for instance, when I wrote Agriculture A to Z for O'Reilly Media, which is completely based on my own idea, my development editor was Sarah Gray, and we had really great rapport. And she did guide me a lot. There was a lot of content that I wrote for that book that ended up on the cutting room floor. And a lot of it wasn't because it was bad work, but because they had to fit. O'Reilly is happy to publish a book, for instance, on a programming language that's 800 words long, but they don't want to publish a book that isn't a technical guide to some particular technology that's more than, say, 250 pages or so. So for that reason, a lot of content that I wrote was cut out of Agriculture A to Z. And also, Sarah was able to organize my ideas. And she said yes to, I would say, 90% of my ideas. 10% of my ideas, she guided me to a different direction. So I could definitely benefit from that sort of creative feedback. I've worked with that my entire career. Even before I started writing books, when I was writing blogs for AT&T and Venify and several other corporations, I had a lot of people above me who were guiding me through the process. Because, for instance, when I was writing for AT&T, my words could be interpreted as being the words of AT&T, even though it was credited to me. So sometimes, not all the time, but occasionally you even get like a lawyer who works for the company look over your writing to make sure that that'll only happen if they're concerned that something you're writing might expose them to litigation. But I've had things reviewed by a lawyer that I've written. But writing on my own, I have no one to tell me no to any of my ideas. So I'm actually a lot more concise with communicating my ideas through writing than I am through speaking. I can really ramble when I speak. But my voice does shine through on all the books that I've written for commercial publishers. But now I've got no one to suggest that I should do things a little differently here and there. And depending on whether you like my style of writing or not, that could be a blessing or a curse. But one of the upsides to the format of this book is some of the pages are very prosy, just like reading any other sort of nonfiction book that's in a prose format. But some of the chapters, like especially the chapters that focus on particular certifications, I spend the first couple of pages of that chapter talking about the certification organization, but then it's a very kind of template where I name the cert, I describe which cybersecurity roles the cert is relevant for, and I refer to different study resources for online training and YouTube videos and books and online courses and how to register to write the cert and how much the cert costs to write the exam. And that all doesn't fit me being conversational when I get to those sections where I'm just sharing information kind of in the almanac sort of format about a particular certification. So there are parts of the book where it is me and I'm conversational and writing, and there are other parts that are very like you're looking at a textbook. So it's a little different from a less structured format. So it might kind of suit me a little better to have kind of, so I'm not like rambling so much. So it's a different experience. It's a different experience. I may very likely write other books published by commercial publishers in the future. This is my first time going on my own. I've had some guidance from people who have been successful at self-publishing before. So yeah. So, okay, so we got a question here, which is, what is the projected time frame for when the book may hit the market? And that is another excellent question. So I am, let's say, 40% done writing the initial drafts at this point. On average, I've been writing 3 or 4 chapters a week since I started. I do a quick little edit when I'm done writing the chapter, like just reading through, looking for typos, making sure, reading it back to myself, making sure it reads well, fact checking, make sure I got all my facts straight and whatnot. When I have written the drafts for all the chapters, then I'm going to collate them into more of a book format, and I'm going to reread everything again. And because I'm not working with any editors, I have to be extra careful to look for typos, to make sure it reads well, to make sure it's my usage of words is easy to understand and not confusing. And so going through that whole process, so probably the way I've been writing, unless some contingencies come up, like I get an extra workload from one of my side gigs, I should probably be done all of the first drafts in about 2 to 3 weeks, probably more like 2 weeks the way I'm going. And then I will spend at least a week just making sure that everything is edited properly. And then I'm working with a couple of companies to turn my draft into an ebook format. And I don't know how long it takes them to take my Microsoft Word files and convert them into a PDF format, an EPUB format that works with your ebook readers, a Kindle ebook format. But I think it would be it would be weird if it took longer than a week to convert my drafts into the ebook file formats. So considering all of that, and I'm sorry I'm getting kind of long-winded, that's just kind of my communication style. But the way things are going, short of contingencies, my book should be available to backers and commercially available and published by, I would say, first or second week of March. So the Kickstarter campaign ends on February 11th. But it might be earlier. It might be last week of February, the way I'm going. But there are always contingencies. And the most likely contingency will be one of the companies I work for gives me a much heavier workload than I've been expecting. So another question, why did you decide to write this book? What challenges have you seen in the cybersecurity profession that led you to wanting to write this particular book? And that's another excellent question. So I've got, I think, a little over 17,000 followers on LinkedIn. And so there are all kinds of, I have lots of followers and people who I follow who are honestly more prominent in the industry than I am, but I also have lots of people following me who are relatively new to the industry, who are trying to enter the cybersecurity field. And since I started to be, when I took that OPIT faculty job, I'm now a professor at the Open Institute of Technology, and I teach basically the Cybersecurity 101 course in their master's degree program. I get a lot of questions from people in LinkedIn messages, relative newcomers to the, sometimes people who've never had a cybersecurity job, and sometimes people who are in one cybersecurity role and they want to move to another sort of cybersecurity role, and some people who work in IT or software development outside of cybersecurity, but they want to work in cybersecurity. And one of the, in marketing or corporate language, one of the biggest pain points that these people have is the sheer number of certifications in our industry is overwhelming to them, and they don't know which certifications they can pursue. They will be limited in how many certifications they can pursue according to their personal finances and how much time and energy they have into studying and writing the exam. And so they can't just, pursue 50 different certifications. They've got to narrow it down a little bit, and they don't know where to start, and it's very confusing. So there is a void. There are all kinds of books on particular cybersecurity certifications, but when I search on Amazon, there's a void in the market for a book that's just a guidebook to cybersecurity certifications. And also I want to include, college and university programs. And I also want to include ways that people can get experience before they're employed for the first time. So like capture the flag competitions, for example, and like different communities that they can get involved with that would be good for networking, because unfortunately getting a job means, very often who you know is at least as important as what you know. So I want to collect all that information in one book, because I get people asking me all the time for guidance in all these matters. So it'd be really great to be able to direct them to like a nice, concise 250 page book that they can read about it. And then also, most importantly, can guide them to resources. So if they determine that they should be pursuing 2 or 3 specific certifications, for instance, what they need to do, what was resources where they can learn to study for the exam and then write the exam. So, and I pitched the idea for this book to Wiley, and I pitched it to O'Reilly, and I think I pitched it to No Starch as well. And they were not interested. They said yes to my other book ideas. Those book ideas I've written and they've published, but they didn't think. And the only reason why any of these publishers would reject my ideas because they don't think it would be profitable. So, the way the Kickstarter is going, and maybe the way the ebook sells once it's been properly published, maybe that will kind of show them that no, this is actually filling a void in the market and people need guidance in these areas, and a book like this could really help them. So there's another question here, which is the book more geared towards someone who is starting their career in cybersecurity, or will someone who is well into their career still benefit from your book? Asking as someone who fell backwards into cybersecurity and has maybe not put enough thought into certification and career advancement. That is another excellent question. I think if you've already worked in the field, then the book could be useful if you want to move from one area of cybersecurity to another. So just based on my own personal experience, last semester at the Open Institute of Technology, I taught the introductory cybersecurity course to master's degree students. And I think most of my students had never worked in the industry before, but one of my students works in a SOC. He's a SOC analyst. And I thought that was really cool. And also, there's all kinds of I have lessons in the course that I teach about security operations and how SOCs work and what SOC analysts do. And I don't have a lot of experience doing that sort of work, so I was honestly kind of everything I said about the SOC resonated with him, so I must at least know what I'm doing. But the fact that there are people who are, for example, SOC analysts, and they're in the course that I teach at OPIT, that means that there are definitely lots of people who are in certain areas of cybersecurity and they want to move on to careers in other areas of cybersecurity. So if that's you, then yes, this book can help you as well. So I got another question or comment here. Thank you for saying that there are too many certifications and it's very confusing to start and on which ones to invest. I feel for you. Uh, my career did not take off until I was in my 30s. And when I was in my 20s, I was poor. Like I'm not rich now, but when I was in my 20s, I was poor. And the idea of having to spend several $100s on a course and another several $100s to write an exam was really daunting. And not only daunting, but no amount of courage was going to give me the amount of money to spend on that sort of stuff. And it can be kind of a barrier for a lot of people. And but some people can manage to afford to spend a few $100s here and there, but that's still a lot of money to them, and they need to know that their money is being well spent. They don't want to spend several $100s on a course and on some books and on writing an exam, and then it turns out that acquiring that certification doesn't help them in the job market at all. So I really hope that my book helps with that. So I'm more than happy to recommend all kinds of cybersecurity certifications, not just the CISSP. The CISSP, I think, is other than the GIAC certs, is probably like one of the most expensive certs. I know that I spent, I believe it was 1,200 something Canadian dollars just to write the exam. And that was out of my own pocket. It used to be like in the 90s and early 2000s, people were more likely to be in a position where they had an employer who would pay for them to upgrade their certifications or to get certifications in the first place. Definitely, like for instance, ISACA was fairly big as early as like the 90s and the 2000 knots, and CompTIA was definitely a thing as well. And very often employers would pay for that, and these days employers are a lot less likely to pay for certifications, partly for some employers maybe because they're afraid that if their employees become too qualified, for instance, that they might just take those qualifications and move on to a different employer. So yeah, it can be if you're going to spend several $100s on your certification, you want to make sure that that is money well spent. So hopefully my book can help people with that, definitely. Fortunately, most exams do not cost over $1,000 to write, but the CISSP does. So yeah. So we don't have any more questions at the time being, so I can just keep rambling. It's 27 after the hour.
Oh
And
no, hello Kim, how are you?
oh, hello, I hear a voice. Hi, Carlos.
Nice to meet you. I didn't want to interrupt because you were on a flow, so.
Feel free to talk.
But no, I was wondering, I'm new to the field, and doing my personal research. I hope I'm not wrong, of course. I'm currently starting to take my network plus from a company called CompTIA, and I think I'll do that in about 2, 3 weeks. And I'm doing self-study, and after that, I'll do something called Security Plus by the same company. Just because of some people that I know, they told me, look, man, you want to pivot and you have no idea what the field is about. So those are vendor neutral and can give you a good idea of many different areas. For example, uh, as I'm doing my studies for the Network Plus, I'm learning about identity access management, penetration testing, uh, red team, blue team. And of course, I know what those words mean, but superficially, I don't really know what what they entitle. So, listen to you talk. Uh, I'm glad I'm glad actually because uh, I'm sticking to this because I want to have like a center. But if I go on YouTube, it's like, no, you have to do this. You have it's like 10 certifications just for something entry level, and it's very well more than expensive economically, which is of course a factor. Time consuming. Imagine studying for a whole year to take 2, 3 introductory certifications is very overwhelming in a sense.
Absolutely. I think I have a lot of respect for CompTIA. Is it I actually wrote this. I've already written the draft for the CompTIA chapter in my book. And in the introductory paragraphs of the book, I wrote, "How do you pronounce it?" Because I'm a writer, and that means I can spell a lot more words than I can pronounce. And I see the name way more often than I hear it said. And I've always been, ever since I was in my 20s and I pursued my first CompTIA certs, I've always pronounced it CompTIA, but I've also heard people on YouTube pronounce it CompTIA. So
So pronunciation, they actually go by CompTIA, even though it's,
CompTIA, all
yep.
this time I've been a fool.
You're not the only one. No, it's we actually went to the conference for the partners this summer and they go pronunciation wise, they say CompTIA. But I say CompTIA myself.
Now we
So
got to argue over how GIFs are pronounced. I say it's pronounced GIF. It's funny
yeah.
too because I was writing for Venafi's blog for at least a couple of years, and then I went to Sector, which is the biggest cybersecurity event in Toronto. And I went to the room where all the vendors have their booths and they all kind of market their wares and get people's addresses and raffles and whatnot. And I found the Venafi booth at Sector, I think it was Sector 2019. And I was very happy to meet some of the people in person that I've been communicating with online for a couple of years. And I said, I think Venafi, and they corrected me, no, it's pronounced Venafi. And I'm very good at faking confidence, but on the inside, I was so embarrassed.
You were probably not the first and you will not be the last. I mean, look at how we spell accolade. No one gets it right the first time.
But I get it because the name of your company, Accolade, it's got creative tech company spelling, but it's basically like an accolade. So like the
Correct.
original word would be ACC. Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. You got it.
Yeah. So, all right. So, oh, yeah. So my friend says he's always said TIA as well. Yeah. So I'm going to say CompTIA from now on, just so I don't embarrass myself so often. So we've got another comment here. And so thank you for sharing such valuable knowledge. I am self-studying for the Security Plus CompTIA exam. I also feel like your voice is clear and would be awesome if you do the audiobook. And thank you so much for bringing up the audiobook because the audiobook is one of the stretch goals of the Kickstarter campaign. So we're already 130% funded. If we get to 300% funded, then there will definitely be an audiobook. And I fully intend to record that audiobook myself. My romantic partner is a music recording professional. So he knows how to take my audio files and to make them professional quality. And I also have this really nice Ars Technica microphone that my school, the Open Institute of Technology, bought for me. So I feel confident that, with that and certain software and with the help of my partner who knows about audio quality and mixing, I'm sure I can come up with a really good quality audiobook in my really dorky voice. It's a lot of work to narrate a, let's say, 200, the way my writing is going now, it'll probably be like a 250-page book. So I would basically take a week out of my work life and do a little bit of recording each work day, and then having my partner go over everything and make sure I sound clear. The audiobook will happen. You can check out the Kickstarter campaign right now. The audiobook will happen if we reach the stretch goal. So if you'd like an audiobook, I strongly encourage you to share the Kickstarter campaign on your social media and with your friends. We still have another 2 weeks, so we could very well make that stretch goal. And if we do, I'm going to make the audiobook happen. And I also believe that the Security Plus is an excellent introductory cybersecurity cert. And in fact, it's changed a lot over the years. The A plus has changed even more. But I first wrote the A plus and the Security Plus and the Network Plus in 2006. And the curriculum and the content of the exam has had to grow and evolve as the technology has grown and evolved. But I really enjoyed the experience of studying for those exams and writing them, and it did help me in the early days of my cybersecurity career before I went on to writing and teaching full time. So I think CompTIA is really, really good at basic general certifications like that are vendor neutral. And yeah, I think plus one of the interesting things about choosing which certs to pursue is a lot of certs are really good at demonstrating that a candidate has particular knowledge and skills. And some of those certs are really, really good at doing that, but employers have barely heard of those certs. And then there are other certs that employers are a lot more likely to hear about, but maybe they don't really reflect real world knowledge of that particular cybersecurity practice, for instance. So in judging which certs are worthwhile to pursue, I kind of try to balance between how familiar employers are with the cert and the quality of the cert overall. So one thing that has got me really excited, because I've been able to see cybersecurity certification evolve a little bit over the years. And we got someone else entering. Okay. So one of the things that I have noticed is more recent certification organizations, such as Accolade, such as Hack the Box, and I worked for Hack the Box for a little over the year, are really good at developing certs that really demand that the person taking the exam demonstrate real world skills. OffSec is really good for that as well. And so I see a general pattern where the newer companies offering certs are getting really are being really innovative, and they're designing certification programs and exams that do require that you demonstrate real world skills or that you have real world knowledge. And then, to be completely honest with you, there are some other organizations and certs where being on multiple choice questions isn't too bad, especially if it's not pen testing related, but it's based on the way things were done like 10, 20 years ago. So, people in the cybersecurity certification space, they know that some certs are really good at keeping up with the times and others less so. But it's really tough in the technology space, because in the technology space, everything changes so quickly. So there's that to consider as well. So we got another question here, which is there anything surprising, interesting that you discovered while doing research for the book that you can share with us? Yeah, so I'm only 40% done the first drafts of the book, but I got to learn quite a bit more about the Hack the Box certifications that are available right now. And it was really interesting to me because I left the company shortly before they came out with those certifications. So for the year or so that I worked for the company behind the scenes, there are all kinds of people on the outside who kept asking Hack the Box, when are you going to come out with certifications? When are you going to come out with certifications? They had all kinds of virtual machines that just virtualized one endpoint or one server. When I was with the company, mainly in 2021, they're starting to come out with virtualized networks based on cloud platforms. So that was a new service that they were working on. And now they finally got the certs, and their certs have been around since 2022, I believe. And still, it's difficult to tell how many employers know about them yet. I pay a lot of attention to job postings on LinkedIn and different communities and different discussions that are going on in the cybersecurity community. And there are some certs that I'm very confident employers are very familiar with, CompTIA certs like the Network Plus, ISC squared, CISSP, for instance, and then there are other certs that might be less known to the market, but it would be that's going to change over time. So I gotta always make sure that I look at these discussions that people are having on LinkedIn and look at the job postings and see which particular certs are being referenced in the job posting and stuff like that. One thing about this book, because certifications change and they grow and evolve, obviously, and industry demands, they change and they grow and evolve, is maybe at some point I'm going to have to write and publish a second edition of this book, and then a third edition. If there is the commercial demand for second editions and third editions, then I will produce second editions and third editions. Unlike working with a commercial publisher, the ball is in my court when it comes to things like that. So yeah, if there is demand for more updated editions of the book as the years go by, then I will produce them, definitely. I've also been asked about a paperback. Now, I did not mention a paperback in my Kickstarter campaign. If there is a lot of demand for a paperback, I will very strongly consider, at the very least. Amazon, maybe the most cost-effective way to do it and the most practical way to do it is Amazon has a service where they will produce paperbacks on demand when people order them on their website. I might have to go that route because, I don't have the kind of capital that a commercial book publisher would have. So I don't want to be sitting around with, hundreds of copies of paperbacks that I can't sell. But producing paperbacks on demand could be very doable pragmatically. So I will definitely strongly consider that. As a reader, honestly, I love both ebooks and I love physical paperbacks and hardcovers too. I have different reasons for liking each of those formats. So as far as old-fashioned physical books are concerned, I have all kinds of bookshelves in my apartment, and they are filled with some very nerdy books, and I really enjoy being able to see my books on the shelves. And I really enjoy, walking into my home office and impulsively taking a book off the shelf and looking through it. And there's a kind of satisfaction in holding a physical book, like a kind of a tactile thing. But there are advantages to ebooks. I read a lot of ebooks, and the advantages to ebooks, in my opinion, is I do probably at least half of my reading in bed before I go to sleep, and I can easily take a physical book into bed and have like a little book light or use my bedside lamp or whatever. But sometimes I just like to really bury myself under the comforter with a glowing book, and it's really comfortable for me to have like a glowing ebook on my phone and to like get under the covers all snugly. Like I'm like that. I'm like a house cat. With my glowing book and being able to easily swipe pages on the touchscreen. Although, back in the 90s when ebooks weren't really a thing, I did read lots of physical books in bed, and I would actually have to have like a little book light that, but now I'm just so used to the comfort and convenience of having this little glowing screen when I'm buried under the covers. But then there are other cases where I would really prefer to have a physical book. So honestly, I like both formats, and they both have their advantages and disadvantages. It's more economical for me to produce an ebook, but if there's a lot of demand for a physical book, then I will look at my paper book production options, definitely. All right, so we've got 46 after the hour. This can run until 8 p.m. Eastern, but if this is your last time that you have to ask questions. And if I don't see any questions or comments in the next minute or so, oh, wait, we've got a question. All right. So I was going to ask your favorite e-reader, but it sounds like you use your phone. I would love another one of your books on my shelf, but I understand the challenges of getting it printed. Oh, thank you very much. I think it could actually be pragmatic to go for Amazon's paper book on demand option. So I will still look into that. I don't mention paperbacks in my Kickstarter campaign at all. When I'm done writing the book and I've gone through all the steps with the third parties to produce the ebook in various formats, and I've delivered that to all my backers, and I've made them commercially available through various platforms, that's when I'm going to sit and consider the options for a paperback. The audiobook is going to be dependent on reaching the stretch goal. Okay, I got that. The audiobook is dependent on reaching the stretch goal, or to be completely transparent with you, if somehow the ebook sells like gangbusters, without reaching the stretch goal, I might sit and reconsider doing the ebook as well. I'm sorry, audiobook, not ebook. And then like the distant stretch goal is to produce an ebook in a language other than English. And if I reach that stretch goal, and you can see it's kind of a higher tier stretch goal, that's because I would not be having AI do the translation. I don't believe in doing it that way. I believe in doing it by having human translators go through my book and translating my book the old fashioned way. And so there are agencies that one can hire that do professional translations. And I've looked into those agencies already. So if that higher stretch goal is met, because I would have to pay those people quite a bit of money to do it, there will be, if that stretch goal is met, there will be an ebook in a non-English language. Now, which non-English language is up to you. So if for some way that stretch goal was met, I would go back to my backers, you guys, and I would ask, okay, which non-English language would you like to see my book translated into? And then I would go to the translation agency and see what we can work out. But that is, I will admit, a distant stretch goal. How much will someone's knowledge of AI be a part of cybersecurity and its certifications in the near future? Are colleges keeping up with advances in AI? I know that my school that I teach at, OPIT, talks about Gen AI a lot, and I know that my school does have courses in Gen AI, although I don't know a lot about those courses. I also know that Accolade has one cert right now that is focused on Gen AI and cybersecurity. And I believe there's going to be a second cert that they'll be producing, which also focuses on Gen AI and cybersecurity. There aren't a lot of cybersecurity certifications that mention Gen AI too much. And that's basically what I know about that right now. I'm most concerned about AI as a possible cyber threat, with cyber threat actors using Gen AI in their attacks. I think OPIT is definitely obsessed with Gen AI. I can tell you that, quite frankly. I think Silicon Valley, like there's a big academic institution in Silicon Valley. Of course, there's Stanford and whatnot. I'm sure because of all the tech bro culture there, I'm sure they're obsessed with Gen AI. I can't speak for every institution, so that's just my anecdotal knowledge of the situation. All right, so I've been drinking hot chocolate. I really like hot chocolate. So I'm just gonna give you guys another 20 or 30 seconds. And if there are no further questions or comments, then I will wish you all a very good night, or a good morning, or a good afternoon, depending on which time zone you have to be in. So. Oh, thank you. Can't wait to read the book, Kim. Thank you for doing this. Good luck. Oh, thanks, Kim. Oh, it really warms my heart, the positive reception I've had for all of this and the support of all of you folks. And I don't take it for granted at all. I have gotten so much support from you guys and from the community. And honestly, it keeps me going. So I'm grateful to each and every one of you. And I'm working really, really hard on the book. And I really, really hope that you do like it. I'm giving it my absolute best effort. So I really, really appreciate it. Oh, I see all of your lovely comments. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Yeah. It's been really great to have you all show up and support my book. And I really, really appreciate it. And I really hope that my book helps you. And this has been a really satisfying endeavor. And, you know, when I sign a book deal with a commercial publisher, every book deal I've ever signed so far has just been giving that publisher the publishing rights to that one particular book. There is nothing in any of my contracts to stop me from writing original new books and self-publishing them. So I'm not closing any doors. I might go back and forth between writing more books for O'Reilly and writing more self-published books. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, this has been, I'm someone who is very risk adverse and scared to try new things sometimes. For the longest time, I thought I would never self-publish a book. So the fact that everyone here is encouraging me to do this, it really means a lot to me. Thank you very much, everyone. So so that's all of your feedback, and I really appreciate it. I hope everyone has a great day or a great night, and thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it.